love me round a champion, a champion. This is me, I still on it, 'cause you all wanna be loved. Yeah, you all wanna be loved.
Hey, happy hump day, happy Wednesday, happy Valentine's Day. Today is a special day, but it's also a sad day, and we'll get into that shortly. But I want to welcome everyone who's here. I first want to welcome everyone who's new here to the Bama Standard Network, and also welcome those who have been here before, our special fans and viewers and supporters. We definitely appreciate you here. Now, this is the Crimson Dynasty, which is a sister show of the Bama Standard Network. So I know a lot of you are coming more and more familiar of us. We just started this past football season, so we're definitely, in high hopes about keeping it going. But before we get started, I definitely want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Workspace Solutions. So if your business needs a digital presence or a full-fledged marketing team at an affordable price, be sure to reach out to them. We actually have their website listed below on the banner. And so just contact them, figure out, what it is that you need. Maybe they'll be able to serve you in some form, but be sure to tell them that we sent you there. Now, be sure to hit the like button and also subscribe while you're here, but hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. We're always dropping hot content here, and we have a lot of shows here as well. So we're trying to keep that going. Even though football season is over, we're still, keeping tabs on all the other sports across the Bama nation. So my name is Sishi, and I'm the host here for the Crimson Dynasty, and we have two of the most amazing co-hosts. I don't think I could have asked for anyone else. I mean, we've had other people on before, and they've been awesome as well. But I think with, myself and our guest, not even the guests anymore, but the co-hosts that we have, they've been awesome, and they add their own flavor, their own, I think, personality that our viewers seem to really enjoy. So I'm going to first start off with Hannah. So Hannah is our latest addition to the Crimson Dynasty channel and show. And so I know that y'all are familiar with her now. This is maybe her 4th or 5th episode. And so she's gotten some really good feedback, even live during the show. And so Hannah, welcome. Thank you for being here tonight. Now, one thing that I wanted to mention about Hannah, she also graduated from Alabama, just like myself. She has a sports broadcasting background, and she's been on several college football shows, even around the time that the season ended. And so she has a radio show in Huntsville, Alabama, ESPN Radio, but she also has a couple podcasts that she produces each month. And so she has really good content. I think that our viewers will enjoy it. And so towards the end of the show, we're going to pop our socials and any additional shows that we may be featured on so that y'all can check her out there. Now, I also want to introduce our other co-host, Dan James the fourth, not third, not the fifth, but the fourth. So a lot of y'all are familiar with him. He's actually he's actually the lead recruiting analyst for The Final Whistle. So The Final Whistle is one of our shows that airs here on the Bama Standard Network. Now, on Tuesday nights, you can catch him on The Final Whistle. He pretty much anything that you want to know regarding like former recruits or even upcoming recruits, the ones who have recently signed, he's going to be your guy. So when we do our breakdown and our analysis of the different players, he's the one that you probably want to ask the questions to. So I definitely want to welcome both of you. I hope that y'all are enjoying your Valentine's Day. It's really just a day of love, but we know that with love, there's also hatred, and there's also a lot of evil out in the world. And so, we focus so much on just the game of football here. And like I said, we just started really, getting into the other sports as well. But speaking of football, we know that we're coming off of the Super Bowl. And so the Kansas City Chiefs, they were celebrating their Super Bowl win, and rightfully so today. And, of course, their parade, tragic, just completely. And it's really pathetic that things like this keeps happening, and I'm really hoping that we see a change, but it's just flat out evil. And so our thoughts and prayers definitely go out to the lives that were lost and also those who were impacted and affected. I think everyone who was there, along with, of course, the victims and their loved ones. So we first want to, extend our condolences and our prayers to everyone, who was there to just celebrate a day of love and a day of victory. But, unfortunately, it's a lot of evil out there. Now, before we kick things off, I'm going to hand the mic over to you. Dan, do you have anything in specific that you want to say regarding that or anything before we get started tonight?
Yes, definitely. Our prayers and condolences to the people out in Kansas City. It's such a sad time we're in, and especially on the day, which is supposed to be a day of love. We tend to lose our compassion for our fellow man. And also the situation in Atlanta. It's just you know, we got to become better as a people, you know, and it starts at home, you know. We just have to find a way to, you know, love one another. You know, it's you know, it's just something that, you know, tends to hit hard. You know, it doesn't seem to be any end to it, you know, so that's why we have to stay prayed up.
I agree. And what about you, Hannah? Did you have anything that you wanted to say?
Yeah, so I think, you know, as a first responder, I have to give my heart out to those two, you know, because when you have a situation, any mass casualty incident, you know, like you immediately think of the victims and their families and their friends, which is so true. But also, first responders are left with the hard impact of not helping save someone or what they saw. And so, you know, and I will say that there were several heroes today. A lot of fellow fans from the Chiefs, they tackled one of the shooters. Some of them immediately began CPR in one of the victims. And so, you know, I try to remind myself that as much evil's in the world, that we know that the Lord's love surpasses that. And then we can see that when we work together for the good of our community. So even though it's a hard day and it's a sad day, that we can also be reminded that there's good even in bad, and that, you know, love always wins. Like, you know, so I have to remind us of that.
Yeah, no, you're 100% correct, both of you. You know, God is still in control, and it's just sad. But I really hope and pray that, you know, the perpetrators, that they're found and quickly, you know, that they're held accountable. So, you know, we wanted to start with that because I know that a lot of us, you know, we're football fans, we're Alabama fans, and, you know, a lot of times we can kind of get like lost in the sauce, and we get so focused on all these different moving parts and changes in the football community. But then, you know, you kind of have to snap back into reality and just remember that, you know, the person across from you, they may not look like you, they may not be from where you're from, but, you know, they matter just as much as you. So we'll leave it there. You know, we could circle back around to that because, of course, that's more important than anything. However, we're going to jump into our first topics, and I know that, you know, we've heard a lot about this throughout the week. Of course, Ryan Grubb is out, and I know a lot of fans felt some type of way, and rightfully so, right? Not just Ryan Grubb, but also Scott Huff. So both of them came over from they were going to come over from Washington. I guess I got to use past tense now. You know, we had our hopes up high. So Ryan Grubb, he came over to Alabama as the OC, and of course, Scott Huff as the O-line coach. And so, you know, both of them were great wins for us. But of course, we know that they're both going to the Seattle Seahawks. Boo. So
every game now.
I know. You know what? Like it is what it is.
I'm a Seahawks fan, so
yeah. You know, it's unfortunate, but I think that, you know, the people who need to be there, they're going to be there. And so we do know, because the question earlier this week was essentially who's going to take on that OC position, the OC role. And so we know that the guy who came in, Nick Sheridan, who was going to be our tight ends coach, he's been named as the OC. Now, one thing to mention about him, so he played quarterback at Michigan, so that, you know, that's interesting. But he was also the QB coach at Indiana when Michael Penix was there as a freshman a few years ago. He was a tight ends coach at Indiana, OC at Indiana, tight ends coach at Washington. So what I noticed with this is that he has a relationship and history with Kalen DeBoer, and to me, that's awesome. Because when you think about it, think about a school like Texas. You know, ultimately, I think it's going to be Kalen who's going to be calling, you know, kind of calling the shots in terms of the offensive plays. I mean, think about Texas. Who's their OC? Steve Sarkisian. You know, he's the one that you see calling the plays. And so, of course, you don't want it like that all the time. But I just definitely think that it's still going to be a powerful offense. And I hope that our players feel the same. So before I move on, I want to get y'all's opinions on this. And I'm going to start with you, Hannah. How do you feel about Nick Sheridan being named as the OC?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good call. And I mean, I think one thing that we have to remind ourselves is we saw Nick Saban do similar things, right? I mean, I think when people remember Jim McElwain for Alabama, he was a guy that people kind of like, when Nick Saban gave him a big role. And I think we're seeing that now, because we have to remember that Nick Saban knew these guys in other jobs at other programs, universities, just like Kalen DeBoer. He has these relationships that we don't see. And so I think it's kind of like trusting the process what we do with Saban. We also need to do that for Kalen DeBoer and his coaching staff. And, you know, I think that when we look at what happened, and I'll be very honest with you, if I'm Kalen DeBoer, I think, and I wonder, because when we saw the reaction when they left Washington, right? Like Grubb didn't want to go. Grubb didn't want to leave. He was bummed he didn't get the head coaching job at Washington. So in my opinion, if I'm Kalen DeBoer, did I really have an honest conversation and say, hey, if you come here, like you're all in, right? There's nothing that's going to hold you back. And I know with Pete Carroll and all that, that was kind of a big situation in Seattle. But in my opinion, he's not the right fit for offensive coordinator Alabama. Was not the right guy because he was not invested. He was not all in. Part of him was still sleepless in Seattle, right? He wasn't here. He wasn't like, let's get this going. And I think we don't need a guy that's 1 foot out the door when he comes here. And I am wondering what this is going to do for a guy like Ryan Williams or some of the other star offensive guys who are super excited to play under his offensive scheme. But I think it's important to remember that Kalen DeBoer has always called his own plays until Grubb. So I am excited to see what happens, but I'm sorry, that was long-winded. But to answer your question, I'm very excited to see what this team does and what this coaching staff does. Because in all honesty, they're all in new positions. So I think we're in a better place than we have been. But kind of like getting rid of some toxic players, we had to get rid of some coaches who really didn't.
Yep. And it's funny you say that because I was going to echo that once you finish that we hold the players accountable and the recruits about, oh, you don't need to be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Well, that goes up to the top as well. So, I honestly, I'm still hopeful. I don't see, a reason why not to be. Now, Dan, I'm going to pose that question to you. How do you feel about Nick Sheridan getting that OC position?
I'm stoic. It's gonna be Kalen DeBoer's, system. It's gonna be his offense, and it can be successful. You mentioned Steve Sarkisian, also Lane Kiffin. So it happens. Chip Kelly when he was at Oregon. So it can be done. It can be done at a high level. But he's gonna be. Calling plays, but I guarantee you, the boy is going to have his fingerprints all over it, So, and now is the time for it to happen before we get into the spring, so we want to get all the kinks and anybody that doesn't want to be here, let's get them out, and let's see, let's go into the spring. Let's see how it works out.
Yeah, I believe we'll be fine. Now, the question that still remains is who's going to replace Scott Huff as the O-line coach. Now, I was just thinking about like the Power 5 conferences, just because we know that, just the way that the conferences are weighed in terms of the strengths of wins and losses is a little different from some of the other conferences. Now, of course, SEC is still at the top, but I was just thinking about, okay, well, who's potentially available and who could be a right fit. So I was just looking at some of the current O-line coaches who are out there. So one guy who came to mind is the current Clemson O-line coach, Matt Luke. Now, the reason why I mentioned him is because he was the O-line coach for Georgia just a couple years ago, that 2020 through 2021 season. They were 22-3. They won the national championship. I think it was the 2021 year that they won the Natty. So I think that, just kind of keeping that in the back of our minds, because we're looking at Clemson where, they haven't been that good the last couple of years. And I feel like, Matt Luke coming to Alabama, that could be, a good fit. And I think that just kind of looking at how, some of the O-lines across the country have performed. I mean, ours was pretty shaky pretty much for the first half of the season. Now, there were a couple other names, and I want to get y'all's opinions on, I have 3 guys, so I want to get your opinions on all 3. So, of course, Matt Luke and just his history at Georgia, I think that's what stood out to me. Now, Oklahoma State's their current O-line coach. Now, this guy is interesting, Charlie Dickey. He also coached at Kansas State, and the reason why I mentioned him is because when you look at the Power 5 conferences and the amount of sacks that were given up just in last season, Oklahoma State looked better than we did, and so I just think with everything in perspective, you don't necessarily want to rule them out, because I'm looking at schools where, maybe the O-line coach, they may consider leaving if the price is right and, coming to Alabama, of course. Now, one other name that came up, and I've seen others mention him as well. He's at Missouri right now. He's their current O-line coach, Brandon Jones. Now, he actually used to work under Lincoln Riley, and then he joined Missouri last year. And so I want to know y'all's opinion. I'm not sure how familiar you are with these guys, but I want to know, and I'll start with you, Dan. What do you think? Like, is there any other name that you're thinking of, or would you maybe recommend one of the guys that I listed?
Well, one of the guys I'm familiar with, Matt Luke. Me, I'm not as big on him. He's a great recruiter, but he leaves a lot to be desired in the development of the player department. What we need at Alabama, we need a developer. You know, the script A, it pretty much recruit itself. You know, but you know, we got, you know, will it be our fourth offensive line coach in 4 years? Am I correct? Or close? But yeah, we got to get some type of consistency. We're not trying to bring in someone else that's not fully invested. So, you know, I'm gonna go out on a limb and I'm gonna throw a name out there, you know, that everyone in this channel is familiar with. I'm gonna go with our very own Chris Owens.
Huh. Yeah. How about that?
Well, it'll be a good start to his career.
Yeah. No, I like that. I don't know if he would want it this soon. You know, he's still fairly young, but yeah, I like that. I mean, at least he knows what it takes. He knows how to resonate with the guys, and then he also has that Bama standard. So I like that. Now, Hannah, and I do see Justin mentioned Cal Flood, so that's another guy to keep in mind. Hannah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, and I agree with Dan because I think a couple of things. And if I'm being completely transparent, our offensive line has sucked for the past couple of seasons, right? I mean, not besides Jaden Robertson, a fantastic job, but when you look at statistically how we've performed comparative to, I mean, do y'all remember when, and I'll get to why I'm picking this guy in a minute, but do y'all remember when we had pro-style quarterbacks like Greg McElroy and we had A.J. McCarron and even somewhat of a Blake Sims, Jake Coker? They had an eternity to throw the ball. And I feel like our offensive line, for the most part, the last two seasons have kind of been like the Carolina Panthers and Bryce Young, not giving time to throw the ball. Right. And so you look at someone like Jalen Milroe and they're like, oh, well, he's not a great quarterback. He's a great quarterback considering what he had to deal with consistently each and every game. So for me, I don't care if we get a peewee football coach out here to coach our offensive line to block properly, give our quarterback time in the pocket, and learn how to develop players. And the guy I've actually talked to, I'm friends with, Anthony Steen, played at Alabama, had time in the NFL, homeboy living in Alabama. And I said, would you? He's like, I'd take it in a heartbeat if they gave it to me. So if anyone's listening, reach out to Anthony Steen because he says the F word, fundamentals. That's what these players need. They need someone who will passionately tell them what they need to do. And, you know, it's all in their setup, right? It's all in their setup. And, you know, as much as I love our guys, I'm not bashing them. I'm not bashing the guys on the team because honestly, it's not them. It's the lack of coaching and the lack of because you can have players. And something else I'll say to you this too is our tackling. And I wish our defense, all our defensive coaches, if they can teach our guys to stop trying to strip the ball every play and just get a good tackle, then we're looking at 3rd and 17, 3rd and 13, not 3rd. Yeah. So I'll get off my soapbox now. But to answer your question, you know, I really am with Dan, which is on this side. I feel like we're doing that. Like, what was that show? There is a story, the Brady Bunch. But anyway, you know, just someone that can come in and get back to the fundamentals because we have the talent. We do. We just need someone to develop that talent, not only for this team, but to get them to the next level.
Agreed. Yeah. And honestly, I feel like that kind of goes back to what we've said on multiple episodes here where, you know, the team, we need to have former players going back and getting those positions. Now, I don't know if the school is putting open recs out online for them to actually apply for. Sometimes they just, you know, they prefer to hire from within. So it's not necessarily open to the public, but you would think that former players, they would be, you know, high on that list. And so I hope that Kalen DeBoer, just kind of what I picked up from him as far as like the culture, it just how he likes to do things. I would hope that he would have a little bit more emphasis on having, you know, former players return. So even if it's, you know, more of an assistant role, whatever. And speaking of assistants, I wanted to mention that 2 of our coaches who decided to stay. So shout out to them instead of T-Rob, but shout out to Freddie Roach and Robert Gillespie. So both of them have been named as an assistant head coach today. I think that's awesome. I think that's what you do. A lot of times we focus a lot on the ones who leave, but we kind of want to give a little bit more emphasis on the ones who choose to stay. And I think this was the right way to not only boost morale, but also just show love and say, look, I recognize that you all have been great since you've been here, and let me reward you for that. How do y'all feel about that, Hannah? Do you think that was a good move? You think it was a strategic move?
Oh, 100%. And I think, if you're Kalen DeBoer, you're looking at these players and you're wanting to show them that your words match up. And I think for him, it was showing that, because you have to look at these relationships these guys have with these players. And I really believe that specifically Freddie Roach is a glue for this team. I think he is kind of like a big brother, like a mentor to some of these guys. And I think for Kalen DeBoer to make this move, it showed not only his loyalty to his players, but even more so his loyalty to his coaches. And I think that's something that, Nick Saban had. And I think that's why a lot of players stayed at Alabama when, they could have left, but also why a lot of coaches were willing to humble themselves and become analysts, right? I mean, how many head coaches did Nick Saban hire to be analysts on the football team because they knew that he was going to develop them? So I'm excited. I agree with you. I think it's a great opportunity for both these guys, but I also think it's a statement to Kalen DeBoer saying, hey, we're going to reward those who stay with this program and who don't waver.
Yep. 100%. Dan, what do you think about this move?
Ditto. That was excellent. Yes, it showed the player that, we're going to reward the ones, that stayed here and didn't bail on us, but like she said, Freddie Roach, former player, all the guys love him. You know what I'm saying? And same thing, Coach Gillespie, he has relationships all throughout Florida, our big recruiting ground. So yeah, it was a huge to retain those two guys, of all of them, those two. And because they were fully invested, and it's just they're just reaping the rewards.
Yep. Agreed. And I see, let's see, James Knox, come north and get Chris Samuels, who also has made its way to OC on the high school level. Show Big Chris family the true Bama spirit. Well, shout out to Chris. Look, I mean, honestly, the job at the end of the day, it needs to go to the one who's not going to only do a good job coaching the guys, but developing the guys. And I think, Hannah, when you mentioned that word, and Dan as well, that's the key word. It's just going back to the development, because, Kalen DeBoer has kind of harped on that since he's been on campus, that, he wants to grow these guys into men, and so to me, that means you're developing on the field and off the field, internally and externally. So I think that's awesome. I see another name too that Justin mentioned, Will Friend. He's currently at Mississippi State. Yeah. So it's definitely a few different options. Yeah.
I think one reason we're probably have not seen that development the last couple of years is the coaching turnover, because I think it's hard and I mean, shout out to these kids who have stayed. I mean, I know I can sound harsh sometimes, but imagine, I don't know the last player, I don't think, when was the last time that they had the same offensive coordinator all 4 years? Alabama has consistently been changing offensive, defense, everything. And it's hard, but it's also hard to be a position coach and come in and be like, okay, where did this guy leave off? What do y'all need to learn? And so for me, it's not only someone that can be fundamentals, it's someone that's going to be long-term commitment, because I feel like that's what our program needs, is someone who can be there 5-10 years and develop an entire program that, from start to finish, from true freshman to graduation. And so I think that's what we've been lacking as well.
I agree with you. Now, one other name that all of us should be familiar with, Scott Cochran. Now, this guy, they announced today that he resigned from UGA. He resigned from Georgia today. So I think that to me, the fact that he resigned spoke volumes, especially considering that Carson Beck is returning. They kind of think in their heads that they have a chance. Well, they probably do have a chance at the Natty, but so do we. So the fact that, Scott Cochran resigned today, he submitted his letter, the school put out a statement. So I think that, because he wasn't the only one. I think there was an assistant who resigned as well. I believe that some of this has to do with, the legal side of things. Unfortunately, the accident that happened about a year or two ago. So I think some of it is going to be fallout from that. Now, I want to know, and I would hope that Kalen DeBoer, I'm sure he knows the name Scott Cochran. Kalen DeBoer, we need to get him back. If we don't have any open roles, we need to create one, because I would love to see him. The difference that he made at Alabama, it's literally bar none. And I just really would love to see us get him back. I didn't see anyone, say anything about where he's going or if he's going anywhere else, if he's, gotten a job somewhere else. So I don't know. Fingers crossed. What do y'all think? I mean, do y'all think that maybe we have a shot at getting him back?
We will see. Time will tell. But I think the reason for him leaving, he was tired of coaching guys as old as he is.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Being that Georgia players never leave school or graduate. So, they get to stay at school for 8 years, coaching Stetson Bennett. What was he, like 47? So coaching grown men is different. So he felt like if he wanted to do that, he go to the NFL. So no, seriously, that's something. He's probably seems to be battling some issues off the field, but we're gonna wish Coach well. I love the guy. I always wish him well. He was a huge, tremendous asset to the University of Alabama. He was outstanding for us while he was here. So, he deserves nothing but our best wishes and respect. And, I would love to get Coach Cochran back in Tuscaloosa, man. I mean, that would be huge. And, the relationship he built with the players over the years, everyone loves him. Everyone. You won't meet guys that don't like him except in the few weeks, the fourth quarter program, but
right.
Hey, awesome guy, man. Awesome guy. Great coach, motivator, mentor for the young kids, so, we're going to wish him well. I hope we can in some capacity bring him back.
Agreed. Yeah. Well, fingers crossed. I don't know. That was something that I recently came to learn, not too long ago before the show started. I'm like, okay, yeah, we need to get that name out there. Hopefully we can get him back. I did want to quickly move on to, I know that we've talked a lot about this whole NIL issue debacle that's going down with Tennessee. So, I did want to just kind of mention an update on that. So we know that yesterday there was this hearing with the federal judge in Tennessee. Now, Tennessee, the attorney generals with Tennessee and also in Virginia, they filed an antitrust lawsuit against the NCAA. So that in itself, to me, spoke volumes. I think they had filed, they wanted some type of restriction against them. It's just so crazy what they're trying to do. But basically what Tennessee is saying is that the NCAA, their NIL rules are illegal and it's keeping athletes from making important decisions. Now, this will make you question what important decision would NIL money or an NIL deal keep them from making besides actually agreeing to come to your school, which of course is in the bylaws of what they cannot do. And so I felt like that was extremely interesting that they would even vocalize that. I just think that's kind of tricky, but I wanted to mention that because the judge still hasn't made the ruling just yet, but it's going to affect everything that comes out of this is going to affect every school, whether it's Tennessee or any other school that's filing a lawsuit. So I wanted to mention that. I'm fingers crossed that, it's nothing too impactful to where the players feel jeopardized because, they deserve to be paid. Now, I want to ask you, Hannah, how do you, I know that we've talked about this whole NIL, debacle. Now, the NCAA, they state that basically college recruits and transfers, they can't negotiate or sign NIL contracts before entering to that university, which we know that Tennessee's quarterback, Nico, he did. I think he was a junior in high school at that time. How do you feel about this? I mean, I know that there's not much that we can do on our side per se, but do you feel like this is something like that's legitimate as far as them looking at Tennessee across all sports? Like, do you feel like, this really could impact all schools, or do you feel like it could be a little bit more specific to just Tennessee?
Yeah, I think the NCAA screwed up. I do. Yeah. I think the NCAA decided to make new rules without boundaries and without walls, right? And I think it kind of became a free-for-all. The NCAA wasn't getting the money they wanted, and they were, it's all about control, right? And I think I said this a couple of weeks ago, when you have these levels, like when this level is trying to control this level, it's not going to do well. Mm-hmm. And so I think what the NCAA did was try to make these players happy, present an opportunity without thinking it through, right? It's kind of like a child that comes to you and say, hey, mom, let's make a really cool craft. And you're like, absolutely. And then your house is destroyed because you didn't think, oh, what was this craft actually going to be? I think the NCAA was trying to appease the child, so to speak, which is the players, without thinking, okay, you get this, but these are the rules in place, because they used to do that so well. But it's kind of like leadership's lacked in the NCAA. And so I think now that players are reaping rewards more than the NCAA is like, hold up. We need some of this money. We need this control, reel it back in. And so now you're seeing this. So I think it's kind of like slapping the hand but it's the NCAA's fault. And so, I mean, at this point, they're using Tennessee as an example, but when in reality, they should take ownership and say, listen, we love the NIL. This was our vision for it, but we did not come forward with a great, like a set of rules and guidelines. That's the word I'm looking for, guidelines for how this operates. So now I think the NCAA has come 100% responding out of panic and frustration rather than logic. So, I mean, that's my comment on it. I mean, Tennessee individually, they've done shady stuff since Fulmer was there. I mean, that's no news. But, I think it could be any program. And if we don't get a hold of this now, and the NCAA doesn't get a hold of themselves, this is going to be Alabama. It's going to be Texas A&M. It's going to be Washington. It's going to be everyone because they're mad. Players are getting money and the NCAA is not.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. Well, I guess, Dan, anything that you wanted to add to that? I know there's been talk about how this could potentially lead to, the guys forming unions, which, I mean, that would be a whole different thing. And it would be a sad day that it even turns into something like that. But I mean, what do you think? Do you think that this NIL, I want to call it a fallout? Do you feel like it's justified that they're really going after this? Because then you got to think about schools like Texas, where there literally is no bar. I mean, you have all that oil money out there. The amount of money that they could be getting for both Texas and Texas A&M, it almost doesn't make it fair in a sense where if a school doesn't have the name or the tradition that a school like Alabama has, they almost feel like they can't compete at all to get the best recruits. So do you feel like this is something that could, we could see it kind of impact the Ohio States of the world, or Georgia, or Texas? And I'm naming them because they've been recently named, in some NIL stuff. So, I mean, how do you feel about that?
It's Tennessee, so burn it to the ground. I'm going to start off with that. But it's all on the NCAA. You can't, this is something that the NCAA should have gotten ahead of, because it's like they're saying, okay, do this, but we'll just tell you when you mess up. That's basically how it's feeling. So the NCAA should have established some hard boundaries, and I think the one way to fix it, let's get a leadership council made of current and former coaches, to establish boundaries when it comes to the NIL. Do a panel with coaches and players. I talked about it before, maybe even do some collective bargaining or something. But this is something that we should have gotten ahead of. Now we're trying to regroup, we're trying to circle the wagons, and it's a big old whirlwind now. So that's all on the NCAA.
They're reactive rather than proactive,
right?
And they should know better than that. I mean, and I see Willie Beeman, NCAA set up a completely new structure with no rules or regulations. What do they expect? What's going to happen? Exactly. And honestly, it's at a point where it's okay, they're worried about this deal, but to me, I don't think they officially sent notice to Tennessee. So it's so weird what's happening. But my question, and then I see another comment from Todd, from what I understand, there were a double-digit number of letters sent to schools, but Tennessee went scorched earth about it and filed a lawsuit. Yeah. And so it kind of makes you wonder too, if Tennessee is almost in panic mode as well. Cause they could, but you know what? Thinking back to when we had Jaden Roberts on our show just about almost 2 weeks ago, I was really thinking the NCAA, before even establishing something like an NIL where money is involved, what layer of protection are they even offering these guys? Because you would think in my mind, say for instance, like a brother or a cousin, they're being offered something from an NIL collective. Well, I'm okay, we're not signing anything until we get an attorney involved, because these guys, all they see are dollar figures. You're making promises to them about dollar figures that none of them have probably, or their parents have probably ever seen. There has to be some layer of protection, and it shouldn't be on the parents to get legal advice. They shouldn't have to come out of pocket for that. If you're going to approach the players for an opportunity to get some money, even if it's not in monetary form, I mean, if it could be like a car, whatever they're offering them, there should be legal counsel that's provided to them at no charge. Now, who pays for that? I have no idea, but that's not our problem, because they shouldn't have established this in the first place until the rules were set. So it's just, I think that we could stay on this all day and all night. I think a lot of us, kind of feel the same way about it. GT18 Nick tried to tell him, he did. I think it was, but God forbid the NCAA listens to the GOAT. Yeah, and they thought that he was whining. I mean, he literally tried. I remember him sitting there because that was at the same time when he called out Jimbo Fisher for buying those players, and Jimbo got mad. But it's the truth, and you see that nothing even came out of that because those guys didn't do anything. They got their money, and that's it. So, but I wanted to pivot a little bit. I know that we kind of, we touched on Kansas City, and we wanted to kind of talk about Travis Kelce and just kind of, what I mean, the Super Bowl and just his behavior and all that good stuff. Unfortunately, with what happened today, it's just kind of touchy. But I do want to at first acknowledge that Kansas City, they won. I was kind of pulling for the 49ers, but I'm proud of Kansas City. Yeah. But Travis Kelce and his interaction with his coach, Andy Reid, that was a bit, disturbing. However, he and his brother, Jason, they have a podcast. And so Jason essentially called him out on it and let him know, like, look, that wasn't okay. Not just, you almost kind of knocking him to the ground a little bit, but also just getting in his face. It's disrespectful. It wasn't called for. Now, I want to know, how did y'all feel about that? I mean, and I'll start with you, Dan, on that. How did you feel about that? I know all of us saw like that moment and, we kind of stood back and you may have felt a little sorry for Andy Reid. How did you take that? And how did you hear about Jason's, I guess, feedback to him? And what do you think about that?
Totally unacceptable on any level. Should you ever put your hand on the coach and get in his face? That was totally unacceptable. But I'm gonna be honest with y'all. This was my Super Bowl experience. I'm gonna give y'all a Dan story. All right, I had a house full of guests. I invited people over. We're watching the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. I have my Jim Beam. I take one shot of the Jim Beam. I sit down, and when I wake up, Kansas City is scoring the winning touchdown.
Good, great.
So that was my Super Bowl experience. So I got all the aftermath, but man, that's pretty much it. That was my Super Bowl experience. Hang my head in shame.
It is. Hannah, how did you feel about Travis' behavior, to say the least?
Oh, well, this is my passionate point, because I can't even come up with a word beyond disrespectful and unacceptable. And listen, I don't care like that he apologized on his podcast, because I'm still mad and frustrated that he did not apologize in the press conference afterwards. Because there's a couple of things. Yes, we all have moments where we get fired, we get passionate, but we're not playing a game that we get paid millions of dollars to do, that millions of people all over the world are watching it, okay? There's a difference. Our platform's small. If I was to go to church tonight and push my best friend in front of a group of people, I would say, I am so sorry, that was so unacceptable, in front of that group of people.
In front of them, yeah.
Travis Kelce was not only out of line for getting that frustrated and putting his hands on his coach, by the way, like that in and of itself is like not okay. But secondly, when asked about it, he made a joke about it. So to me, the only reason he's apologizing now on a podcast is because he was called out by his brother and because he's embarrassed, not because he's actually apologetic of the behavior. And so when we look at kids these days, it's very easy for us to say, oh, look at these entitled, spoiled brats that, disrespect authority, talk to their parents wherever they want to. We wonder why they do that, because people that they admire do that to their own authority figures. Yeah. Right? So to me, was it just a fiery moment? Maybe. Okay. I don't know. I don't know why he did that. But in my opinion, if he would have said after the game, first off, I just want to say that my actions on the field were wrong. I know there is a ton of children watching this, and I just want to say to all you parents, please let your kids know that I was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. And, I let a moment get the best of me. That would have shown class. That would have shown ownership. And that's what kids these days lack. They will justify anything. If they punch someone, regardless of what that person did to them, they don't understand that they are responsible for their behavior, their actions, their reactions. So my passionate point is Travis Kelce was wrong for putting his hands on his head coach and for responding that way, for being put out that gunplay of the game. Okay. Yeah. If I was Andy Reid, I'd have benched his rear end and made an example out of him. I don't care if it was a Super Bowl. You don't do that. So now we're going to see kids these days think, oh, well, I'll just put my hands on the coach and yell at him for calling me out. But anyway,
Well, but I remember seeing college football players. I don't remember if it was Jameis Winston or Johnny Manziel. I remember seeing players
would get in Kevin Sumlin's face. And that was
Yeah.
the call of Johnny Manziel. Because I tell you, I have written an article on this. If Kevin Sumlin would have called out Johnny Manziel, benched him, he would have gotten his act together. Because when you enable that behavior, you're causing issues in the long run. Look at the trajectory. Johnny Manziel was playing games drunk and drugged. We know this now. It's no shock. Not saying Jason Kelce was drunk or on drugs that game, but Travis Kelce, sorry. But you look at the behavior. If Kevin Sumlin would have nipped it in the bud, maybe Johnny Manziel's future would have been a little brighter. Maybe he would have been more successful and more on a straight and narrow path. But for Travis Kelce, Andy Reid also is responsible for not taking ownership. He could have said his behavior was irresponsible, it was reckless, and we're going to have a conversation. But for both of them to play it off as a joke on national television did more damage than good.
Yeah, and it speaks volumes to just maybe to some degree the culture, or maybe just their dynamic between each other. But, to be a leader and to set an example, and that's the example that you choose to set on a national stage, that it was completely out of line. And I would have been embarrassed if I were him. And I think Justin mentioned even Quinshon Judkins, did that as well to Lane Kiffin. So these guys, I mean, they have to understand, I understand, it's a heat of the moment, the passion. They have a strong passion for the game. These guys, they grow up playing football. That's all they know. But at the same time, there still has to be that respect factor. I almost wonder before Coach Saban retired, if that had something to do with it too. Those guys come in and they're making, however much money. I wonder if sometimes that respect factor, it starts to go away a little bit, where it's like, okay, but I'm still your leader, you respect me or you go home. And like you said, it has to be some consequences there, and they have to nip it in the bud as soon as it happens. So, I think that, I mean, it's good that Jason called him out on that. And, he let him know it wasn't even just you putting your hands on him, but it was the way that you spoke to him as well. I think that, it was important to do that. And hopefully, others don't feel that that's okay. Now, I know that we still have about 15 minutes in the show. I wanted to mention, since we're talking about Kansas City, one of our former players, Isaiah Buggs, now has a Super Bowl ring. We know that he played for Kansas City, so that's awesome. We had another guy on the other side of the ball with the 49ers, Cameron Latu. So unfortunately, he didn't get a ring yet, but shout out to Isaiah Buggs. I know that that's a huge moment for him. But then also, when we just look at, some of these accolades over the last week, Will Anderson Jr., this guy has been named Defensive Rookie of the Year. That's awesome. That's awesome for him. I think that none of us are surprised, as far as like how well he's done. And I don't even think he's the only one. I think there's a few others as well, as far as the rookies. Now, I wanted to get y'all's, kind of your opinion on the combine is coming up. 10 of our players have been invited to the NFL combine. There was I heard some chatter about, us only having 3 players in the Reese's Senior Bowl. But then you think about, the NFL Combine, 10 players invited. And I think it starts around the 26th of February. So that's always a huge moment for the guys. Of course, these scouts already know who most of them are. But at the same time, I just think about, to me, that's another accolade for the guys. You get to go out there and really get to go neck and neck and compete with guys who play the same position as you, from a different school, rival school. So I just want to know from y'all's opinion, how do you feel first? How do you feel about Will Anderson? How do you feel about the NFL Combine and 10 of our guys going there? Hannah, I'll start with you.
Sure. I mean, I think Will Anderson completely deserved the award. I mean,
yeah,
what a fantastic year he's had. And honestly, when you look at someone that goes straight from being drafted to being a starter and having that much of success, I mean, tremendous guy. So happy for him. I loved his speech. I loved how he is just so heartfelt. And, I think we're just seeing the beginning of his future. I think that he is probably going to be a household name for years to come. And I think he is probably one of the best defenders to ever come from the University of Alabama. So very excited for him. And regarding the combine, yes. Couple of things. I think the combine is a way for kind of like the Senior Bowl, right? And a way for them to kind of showcase, obviously, their skills, but even more so on a personal basis, right? Because when you go to the Senior Bowl, these coaches get a chance to talk one-on-one with these players and kind of get to know them, but also at the combine, you're sitting down in interviews. And, I think my favorite example ever of the combine is Jalen Hurts. Obviously, an Alabama fan will always claim him. I mean, pretty sure he's never worn an Oklahoma shirt in a press conference, just saying. But when you look at Jalen Hurts, the media were like, are you sure going to be a quarterback? Like, you don't think you should change the position? He's like, no, I'm a quarterback. And look at him now, right?
Yeah.
So I think the combine is a way for these players to really get to vocalize things that maybe they weren't allowed to when they were playing for a particular university, but also it's a way for them to showcase talent in maybe a different perspective. And so, I think Alabama's going to have a lot of great opportunity this combine to show this talent. And I guess the player, maybe I'm wrong, but the player I'm most excited to see in the combine is going to be Jason McClellan for sure. Like, I think he is a guy who maybe didn't get as many reps or whatever you want to say, but I think he is a guy that we're going to see a rise in stock. And I'm very excited for him.
Agreed. And what about you, Dan? How do you feel about Will Anderson getting this award, Defensive Rookie of the Year, and also 10 of our players getting invited to the NFL Combine?
Yeah, definitely a shout out, congratulations to Will. That's a, tremendous, accomplishment for the young man. Also, another thing, I want to give a shout out to Minkah Fitzpatrick. He won the Bart Starr Award, which is given to exemplifies outstanding character and leadership in the home, on the field, and in the community. So shout out to Minkah Fitzpatrick, who else? Yeah, congratulations to Isaiah Buggs, Bama player, get a Super Bowl ring. I think we had Reggie Ragland a few years ago get a Super Bowl ring with the Chiefs. So, congratulations. 10 players, hey, that let you know Bama's still doing it. Bama's still Bama. 10 players at the combine, I don't know how many years in a row that we had double-digit players at the combine. That's outstanding achievement. Anytime you get a chance to get in front of the professionals, the scouts, it's a tremendous honor. So, we just hope our players be able to perform, on the highest stage.
Yeah. And I believe they will. These guys are hungry, and that's built into the Bama standard. And kind of echoing off of what Hannah said when she was talking about Jalen Hurts and his combine. And I remember watching, they did a segment on him. I saw it on YouTube actually. And I just love seeing it, just that journey, when he's with his agent and, he's sitting down with one of the guys and just kind of drawing out, an offensive scheme and all of that. It was just so, I don't know. I think it's one thing to hear about it, but it's another thing to just kind of see that journey. Everybody kept talking about his story and, going from Alabama to Oklahoma. And it started to annoy me because I'm just like, well, that's just a part of his story. That doesn't define anything, just let the guy go and be great. So it was just awesome to see that, him going to the training facility and working with, different people. So that was awesome. Now I do want to kind of pivot a little bit more to other sports across the Alabama nation. I know that we talk a lot about football. A lot of us, that's pretty much all we tend to watch. Now, I will say I love basketball. I was really into basketball when I was younger, and I could play, like I could shoot really well. But I want to talk about some of our other sports because there's definitely things to talk about. And one in particular, our golf. So look, I know we talked about Nick Dunlap before. Now, I wanted to mention 3 of our former players, including Nick Dunlap. They will be competing this weekend, actually, in the PGA Tour, the Genesis Invitational. So Nick Dunlap, Lee Hodges, and Justin Thomas. So shout out to them. I think this is awesome. I think it's going to be in California, Palisades or somewhere like that. But I think it's awesome for them. Our track and field, they've been doing pretty well as well. Ruben Banks, he was named as the men's field athlete of the week. And then also Doris Limgali, she was named as the women's co-freshman of the week. And so she actually had a historic performance. It was the 5,000 meter run at an invitational that she was at. So it says a lot. And I love to see how, I think just that tradition and that expectation to compete at a high level, it translates to all of the sports. I mean, it's not just football, and I think that expectation of greatness is across the board. I'm going to name a few more, and then I want to get y'all's opinion. So we also have baseball. So our baseball team, they actually hosted a fan day this past weekend, and they're, of course, preparing for the upcoming season. So we have our first game this Friday at home. We're playing Manhattan College. So if you're in Tuscaloosa, be sure to go out there, support our guys, baseball, if you're into baseball. If not, just show some support to me. It's Alabama. Now, men's basketball, we did lose at Auburn, whatever. They finally got a W, which we know they're not used to. But we did end up beating LSU at LSU. And so as such, we have moved up to number 15. So that's awesome. We're going to be playing Texas A&M at home this weekend. And then our women's basketball, they lost to LSU a few days ago, whatever, but we're playing Auburn at home this weekend. So if y'all are in Tuscaloosa, if you're in the surrounding areas, be sure to go out and show some support. If I lived in the area, I definitely would be at every game. I mean, across the board, any sport. Yeah. So be sure to show some love. Now, I want to know and I'll start with you, Hannah, any games that you're looking forward to that are coming up, this weekend, anything in specific?
Yeah, Alabama softball. I don't know if y'all tuned in any of the games, but they did fantastic. 5-0 start to this tournament. Did an amazing job. And I don't know if you've watched any of the recap, but I mean, we have some outstanding outfielders who literally stole some grand slams, some home runs against the wall. Amazing. And they play at home. They start this Friday, I believe the 16th. So yes, Friday, the Easton Bash, I think it's called, but it starts this Friday in Tuscaloosa. And our softball program, I am so excited for, because it's kind of been like a rebuilding couple of years. And I was really good friends with Jackie Trina and Molly Fickner and Caleb Rowe. And now that Caleb Rowe has now transitioned from being a sports analyst for ESPN SC Network to now being back on the coaching field for Alabama, the ability for this team to hit and get hits is what they've been lacking. So I am really hopeful this year is going to be that not only we make it back to Oklahoma City, but we can try to win it all. So them, and then, obviously men's basketball, Auburn. So they beat us, and then they struggle on the road, obviously. But yeah, I'm excited for our men's basketball team. And then I guess last gymnastics, we've had a little bit of a slump. So we lost to Auburn on the road. So we got to Auburn they got lucky. They get 2 wins, and then they'll get 40 losses. So, it's okay.
And we barely lost. I mean, barely.
I'm like, literally, it's
like,
it's
y'all don't
a millisecond, like a tenth of a point.
I know. Don't get beside yourself.
Yes.
And I like that. And shout out to our softball team as well. Like I said, we have great things happening in Tuscaloosa, the away games. If you're in the area where the games are, we definitely want to show some support there. Dan, are there any upcoming games that you're looking forward to?
Yes, I'm definitely looking forward to this game this weekend against Texas A&M. We're tied currently in men's basketball. We're tied for first with University of South Carolina. So, even with the Auburn loss, but we're still in first place, which is where Bama belongs. And, Texas A&M got embarrassed by South Carolina, so they're gonna give us the best. Everybody, we're everybody's Super Bowl, so we expect them to come into Coleman and give us their best shot. But I expect us to win going away. Because we are Bama, and we're gonna remind people that we are Bama, not just in football and basketball. Hockey, tennis, marbles, everything,
Not marbles.
Rugby.
That is hilarious.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Look. Y'all light up that chat in case they forgot. Ty Alexander, thank you for the super chat. Roll Tide, roll. I'm drunk, y'all. Hey, Cici and Hannah. What's up, Uncle Dan? Hey, Ty.
I feel you, Ty.
Did it only take one shot?
Oh, yeah. Oh.
No. Shots fired. That's hilarious. That was a good one, Hannah. Yeah, shots fired. Dan, what happened to you? What do you mean?
Listen, I was out like a bad pilot. You know what I'm saying? Man, that was it. It was a one-hitter quitter.
That's ridiculous.
Oh my word!
You can't do that again.
I know that's the first time it ever happened.
You got to be more careful. Look, first time. Now, I do want to remind everyone as we come to a close on tonight's episode of the Crimson Dynasty, I definitely want to remind everyone that we have another show that's airing shortly after this, Teague's Take, and it's actually hosted by JT and George Teague. So it'll be right here on the Bama Standard Network at 8:15 p.m. Central Standard Time, 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, before we go, I do want to give both of you a chance to pop your social media or advertise any show that you may have. Dan, I'll start with you. Any social media where the viewers can find you or any other shows?
Yeah, man, I'm blowing up. I'm the thing on Twitter. You know what I'm saying? Man, I'm feeling myself. I'm up to 130 followers. I'm blowing up every day. You know what I'm saying? I am somebody. You know what
you
I'm
are
saying?
so you've been somebody. You've been somebody.
Listen. I'm enjoying this. I love doing this. You know what I'm saying? Maybe one day I can retire and just do this full time. You know what
I
I'm
hope
saying?
so.
I love it. I love talking Bama, especially being in Georgia. I love the troll Georgia fans. I love the troll Auburn fan, Chris Williams. You know what I'm saying? Talking about Alabama sack you. I got a sack for you.
Yeah.
But we'll leave that there. All right. Oh yeah, what else? We're still talking social media. Okay, yeah. Catch me Tuesday nights.
Are you sure?
Very channel.
Hey, Hannah, I think he took a shot before the show.
I think he did too. Maybe just a half a shot because he's still awake.
Grapico, Diet Grapico. This rant is brought to you by Diet Grapico.
Look, Dan's segment will be sponsored by Jim Beam. It might be.
No, that's it. I think I'm gonna retire from that. Yeah, I wasn't ready. I thought I was ready. You know what I'm saying? I got it from the bootlegger. So
okay. No, that's the problem.
That's a problem. Any other social media?
I think let me see. I think I have an Instagram. I have to verify that. Y'all check with me next week. But it's Dan James the Fourth.
The Fourth.
Hit me up on Facebook, Dan James the Fourth. It's it. But at the Final Whistle Dan on Twitter. And
right.
Tuesday night on this very channel. Catch the show, the Final Whistle. And every Wednesday night, y'all, right here. Whatever place can you get my life stories. But I love you all. Y'all have a happy Valentine's Day. Go home. Oh man, my wife just walked by me in a thong.
No. Anyway, let's see, Chris Williams. Just stopping by to see what color lipstick you're putting on that pig this time, trying to make Alabama look good. Look, there is no color that you could put on to make you look good, so you might as well log off, sir. And let's see, but you probably try it. Well, anyway, Hannah, do you have any social media that you want to share?
I don't think I can top Grapico over there, but I can try. So anyway, I love being a part of the show, and seriously, I love both of y'all. Yeah, you can find me on Facebook and X. I keep calling it Twitter because it's kind of like I'm that person that if someone gets married, their maiden name is still in my phone book.
Yeah.
I don't change the name just because you got married. You're still the maiden name person to me. So anyway, but yeah, you can follow me on Facebook and or Twitter. It's at the UA Sign Girl on Twitter or X, whatever, and then Facebook. Hannah Stevens UA Sign Girl, and then so a couple of things. You can follow my podcast on podcast or wherever you want to, Spotify, Libsyn. It's the Hannah Stevens Show, soon to be renamed and rebranded. And then I have another opportunity coming soon, another show, which is going to be syndicated. I'm very excited about, but I can't give all those details yet. But it'll be very exciting. And I love Alabama. I'm with Dan. Like if this could just be what I do all day, every day, I would do it. And I'll tell you something funny today. I was getting Starbucks coffee in Target, because if it ain't the dollar section, it's the Starbucks that gets you in Target. And someone was like, oh man, I'm so mad Grubb left. We're going to be horrible this year. And I, of course, chimed in and said, no, we're not. And he's like, well, who do you think you are talking sports? And you know what? Some days I fight it. And I said, you know what? I don't know a darn thing about sports. And just walked away. Because some days you got to lose them and some days you got to leave them. And today I just don't. So anyway,
it's not worth entertaining.
I'm like, you know what? If he's upset about Grubb leaving, then he's already not on the same level with us. So I just said, forget about it.
Exactly. And I do want to give a shout out to Piano Man 61. Thank you for the super chat and thank you for just joining us. And I appreciate everyone in the live chat. I like to see the engagement, even though some of them, and shout out to Linda, go off and look, Linda. And I saw you, Linda, in that chat, lighting people up. You can continue doing that, ma'am. I really appreciate it.
Here.
Look, because we got to let them know, Chris is haters are literally fans. The fact that you not only tuned in last week, Chris Williams with that Cam Newton picture where like what the fact that you tuned in last week but then you came back tonight, we really appreciate the support. And I hope that you're in therapy to just kind of work out those issues that you have. I know that you're kind of on the fence between being a supporter, a hater. I don't know how you sleep at night, maybe, but we can pray for you, for sure. I definitely think that you need some support in that area. Now you can find me on Instagram at beauty_of_intelligence. I do have a website. It's about to really pop off as far as what I'm looking to do with, my business. And so I actually have on some of the gear here. So you can actually go to sishicollective.com without the apostrophe, of course, since it's an invalid character, whatever that's supposed to mean. But I definitely want to thank everyone for joining. And before we leave, I definitely want to remind everyone as we get near to April, I know we're still literally 2 months away from A-Day, but go ahead and place your order. So just remember that your game day, your A-Day is not the same without a title towel. So be sure to visit whitwillsports.com to order yours and use the promo code STANDARD for an exclusive discount. We can tell you what that exclusive discount is. You have to go there and find out. So without further ado, thank you everyone who joined. Be sure to hit that like button and also subscribe. I don't know why you wouldn't have. I think Chris Williams has subscribed because he's I think we're living rent free in his head. So we appreciate that, Chris. And we hope you have a blessed night. And I just want to say, everyone, just stay positive. I know it's a lot of evil in the world. We have to, continue to uplift the Kansas City, just the city as a whole, because I know all of them are probably, suffering right now because of, the tragedy that happened a few hours ago. But we will get through it. So I hope that everyone enjoys their Valentine's Day and have a great day. Have a great weekend and roll tide, roll.
Roll Tide.